Hey guys, it's Penelope. We just had a solar eclipse and it's the first of this year. There will be another one in October. I'm just looking at the dates. Today we had April the 30th, 2022, and that's at 10 degrees 35. You can see it on the chart, 10 degrees 35 of Taurus. And then we're going to have a lunar eclipse on May the 16th. At 25 degrees Scorpio, that's going to fall on my south node. And then on October 25th, 2022, we're going to have the partial solar eclipse in Scorpio. And then on November the 8th, 2022, we're going to have a total lunar eclipse in Taurus at 15 degrees. So, and actually that October 25th, 2022, partial solar eclipse will be at 2 degrees of Scorpio. So what I'm going to do is just read through. I'm going to look at this and then jump over to solar fire, but I'm going to read through the definition of what Taurus means briefly from the School of Evolutionary Astrology, the keywords that we use there. So you can see here that this is the chart that you know of the moment. This would have been at 21:42 UK time. I'm going to get my pointer so I can show you better. And then let's see. All right, so we can see what's going on here. We got this is Aries, and we can see that we've got, this is the first house in a traditional chart. My first house is Scorpio. So when you have your time and date and place of birth, you're going to have, because of the time, you're going to know your rising sign. So I'm 27 degrees Scorpio. And that's very much about crises, living in crisis, in and out of crisis, generally throughout life. The new moon fell in the sign of Taurus. You see here, the moon, the sun was 10:28 at the eclipse. So the new moon would have been conjunct at that time, but then the eclipse happened when the sun was at 10:28 and the moon happened at 10:35 degrees. 10 degrees 35. And then Mercury, you can see, just has entered into Gemini, and it will be going retrograde. If I look at the dates there, Pluto is also on retrograde yesterday, being 29th, it's stationed. So I think it's still in station for a few more hours. We'll check that on solar fire. Mercury is going to be going retrograde on May the 10th at 4 degrees of Gemini. And then it's going to be going retrograde back to 3rd of June, June 3. And it will go back to 26 degrees Taurus. So you want to look at your own chart to understand what that means for you. If you want help with that, I can help you. You just book a session. So if we look at this eclipse that's going on, we can see that it's in Taurus here. We've got some really nice aspects to it as well. The meaning of the sun and the moon, you know, the moon is the egocentric self. It's like our feelings and where we feel safe. And the sun is basically where we're the center of our own attention. So wherever your sun is in your chart, that's where it's going to be for you. For me, my sun is in my 7th house in Gemini. So Taurus keywords, and I've got a Taurus North node. So you can look, you know, it's not just going to be one thing on a chart. You can have a varying, everybody's chart's going to vary, and then we're going to integrate the whole chart. So whilst you may have a sun that's in whatever sign it's in, your moon's going to be somewhere else, and it's all going to add up to being unique for you. So Taurus keywords are survival, fertility, and procreation, and preservation, and self as a resource. So what resources have I got inside of me? Our inner resources, our values and beauty, and it's also self-sufficiency, security. It's where we can be isolated or isolate ourselves, and it can be where we withdraw, and stagnation, and personal worth and personal value, where we value ourselves. It's self-esteem, and it's patience. It's also starvation, it's poverty. It's where we feel like we can give up. It's where we can suppress our emotions as well. It's where we can shut down, be stubborn. It's where we can hoard. So if you hoard things and you've got that, that can be one of those things. It's the body as well, Taurus keywords, and it's pleasure. It's where we can be cautious, literal, materialistic, because if we think that the second house also is to do with Venus, so the Venus is involved there, the ruler of Taurus is Venus. And also Venus also rules over the sign of Libra in the 7th house as well. And then we've got with Taurus, we've also got materialistic possessions, landowner, farmer, and the carpenter, the shepherd, and the thief. That's an idea. With the Uranus in here, we're breaking free of limitations. We've had this going on for, you know, a number of years, and it's going to move through. It's going to be there, I think, until 2027, from what I recall. I might need to double check that, 2025, 26, 27. And this is about breaking free of limitations and sort of throwing off consensus belief systems. The ruler of Uranus is Aquarius, and then the North Node is actually heading, if you see here, the North Node, if you can look to the side here, my pointer, you can see that the North Node is 22 degrees. Now the North Node moves backwards, and Uranus, the other planets move that way. So when I say backwards, I mean that the North Nodes are moving around the chart this way, and the other planets are moving around the chart this way. So when we have an eclipse, it's generally that the nodes are involved, the North Node and the South Node as well. And Pluto, we're going to look at that. Pluto is, oh, actually, let's do this, finish that bit. The node is 22 and it's going backwards. And at the moment, Uranus is 14. So that node is moving towards Uranus. So the North Node on conjunct Uranus is to do with breaking free of our limitations. So that'll be interesting because the North Node is our direction. Pluto is going to go retrograde, or it won't retrograde, it's going to go retrograde in the next hours because it's stationed until October the 8th, 2022. And it's going to go direct at 26 degrees of Capricorn. So you see here, we got Pluto up there. It's going backwards, which you'll see on Solar Fire when I show you. And then let's see what else I have here. Right, I've done the eclipses because that's really important. You know what's coming up for you. So I know, for instance, that those eclipses, from what I've told you, I'm going to have, this one is happening in my 6th house, which is my routines, and it's the way I get things done, and my health and my well-being around that area, and also being of service, where I'm being of service and how I can improve that, and also being an improvement to myself as well, not just to others. You know, where am I being of service, or where am I being used in being of service? On May the 16th, that eclipse, it's going to be in my 12th house on my South Node. And then I'm giving you an idea so you can think about this for yourself. I'm not just talking about myself here. So when I talk and I'm explaining this, then you might be sparked to think, well, where is that happening for me? Then in October, it'll be in my 11th house. And then on November the 8th, it will be in my 6th. Now, what's interesting is about eclipses, I'm going to show you here. I'm going to change, let me see, full moon solar eclipses 2022. All right, so see this, hopefully you can. I'm going to share, make sure I've got the right thing I'm sharing. Okay, so this is brilliant because this is AstroSeek. It's a brilliant site, and you can check it out if you just Google or look at where I'm at in the bar up here. You can see what's going on. And then what we have is that here are the eclipses, and then you can see Saros series. So if you look at that, and then I go to click on that, what we have, new share, what we have here is that this eclipse today, it goes back to 2004. So something happened around 2004. Then previous to that, 1986, So you can, if you look back to that period of 2004 in your life, it's like a story that's ongoing. It's an ongoing story. So that's worth knowing. Again, if you want help, I can help you with that. Pluto retrograde is where we, in fact, what I'm going to do now is get rid of my Facebook. I'm getting rid of my Facebook there. And then I'm going to take you to see solar fire. Right, so this is the emanated page. See here? And then you can see what's going on with the planets. This is exactly at the point of the solar eclipse. And you can see that Jupiter is coming to the end of being in fact, that's going to go retrograde as well. So all of these planets going retrograde. I think that Jupiter goes to 0 degrees. We can double check that. And then maybe 1 or 2, and then it's going to go back into Pisces. We've also got this eclipse happening here, and this Pluto is retrograde now. So if I go back hours, watch this chart. So it was stationed, and if we go back by minutes, you see the station, that's RX there, meaning retrograde. And if we go back minutes, there you go. So UK time at 19:35 p.m. it went into, it was station, and then it went into retrograde at 1936. So I've been feeling that today, a lot of emotions coming up for me. I don't know how you've been feeling, maybe you can put in the box below. So Pluto retrograde is basically where we, relative to the 4, this is the evolutionary astrology notes, relative to the 4 natural evolutionary conditions, Pluto retrograde means that half of humanity has basically got, Pluto retrograde as an example, because Pluto goes retrograde once every year. So we're going to have some of the population that's got it direct, and then we're going to have some of the population that has it retrograde. So Pluto retrograde means that half the population of, of the status quo that will reflect, it's about our evolutionary condition and our state. And Pluto retrograde allows for the collective evolution to occur, because half of the people at any one point in time are questioning. So we're questioning the status quo. So when this goes backward, we're going inward, and we're looking at our own status quo, what we think about things. So when it goes retrograde, it's giving us the chance to go over things, reflect on the source of the soul, and then basically we are able to evolve at in an accelerated way. And that's the purpose of this. And then if we look now, if we look at this eclipse, what it means, if we look at the 2nd and the 8th house, or we look at Taurus and Scorpio, so the 2nd house is where it's about our material reality. It's about the money we owe, or that is owed to us, that we own or is owed to us. It's also about where we could have, it's crisis as well. So when we look, because this is about food as well, I mean, we've got to think about what's going on. So, and that's tying in with Uranus. This eclipse literally is falling on Uranus, and this is about money as well, and values. So there could be something coming up around for the collective. We can look at our own charts, but the collective chart will show there's something here where there's something, big changes going on, because that North Node as well, when it hits in, is also to do with monetary and our values, and we're changing, and something could change quite drastically, like quite quickly, and around our monetary values. We do know that Bitcoin's being looked at by certain countries, so we do know that changes are being people are trying to enforce new sort of rules, and we don't know what they're going to be until it happens. And this can be cathartic as well with the 8th house and the opposing. If we think that I'm talking about on the basis that we have this next lunar eclipse is going to fall at 25 degrees of the sign of, I think it's 25 degrees of, is it 25? Let's see. I'll double check that, but I think it's going to be a lunar eclipse in a few weeks on the 16th. So when that happens, you know, this is tied in, these changes are tied in. So if we look at the Scorpio, it's basically, it can be, Scorpio is very cathartic, and it can be where we have emotional transformations and also productive action. And it's to do with our darkest fears as well, because Scorpio is very hypervigilant. You know, if we look at the fight, flight, freeze, fawn in trauma, which Pete Walker speaks about, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and we look at trauma, there's a lot of hypervigilance. And if you think of the Scorpio mother, she has her tail goes over the babies. She has them on her back. She carries them on her back, and some of them for a couple of years. You know, it's really fascinating. If you Google that and you look how a mother Scorpio carries her babies, so the tail goes over the back and covers them, so that I guess if anybody comes near those babies, she can spike them, if you want to look at it that way. She's protecting them. It's a form of protection. And also she's water Scorpio, so it's very emotional as well. And I think a lot of Scorpio moons would know that as well, the depth and the emotion that goes on there. So overall, the eclipse, when it's in the 2nd and 8th houses, it's basically where we can develop also our natural talents, and also where we can look at our values. And, you know, we also, and it's death as well, because it's, you know, birth, death, it's Scorpionic energy. And the truth, when not the truth, but the reality is that eclipses are Scorpionic. They're quite Scorpionic in their way, because they shake things up, and it can involve crisis, but it also can involve, on top of that, it can involve transformation. So it's two things, not just two things going on there, but a few things going on. What I want to do now is, I'm still going to look at this chart for a moment, but I'm going to show you, see this book here? It's called Interpreting the Eclipses by Robert Karl Jansky, and he's not with us anymore. But if you can see this book, don't know if I suggest it, only if you're interested in eclipses, because it goes in a bit deep. It's a very small book. It's not very thick, but you can get it on Amazon. And I bought it for the purpose of my own education and study. I took some notes from that book because it did fascinate me. He's saying in this book that we achieve completeness through each other. So what we have to remember, that even in our own sense of individuation, which we're doing at this time, and Uranus is very much about individuation as well, and that North Node is heading there. So I would say that we're becoming more sort of prone to our own individuation at this point. We're looking at, some of us are looking for a way out of consensus reality. You know, people don't want to be stuck in, you know, with the monetary stuff, with foods as well, and land, because we do know that there are people that have been buying up land and haven't been regrowing food on it. And then we've got crisis going on also with the war that's going on. So when we begin to look at those things, and I'm noticing it when I shop, that the shelves seem to be a bit sort of hit and miss at the moment. So in a way, we have to pay attention to this, because it's easy to sort of put our blinders on and not really, you know, think about these things. But we do need to be thinking ahead at this point of our needs and resources, and making sure that we're covering the idea that what would happen if, you know, there are not enough resources. And he also explains that, I'm just going to read some of the notes I made, because it did fascinate me. He said, he was talking about Jupiter, Saturn, and the sun and the moon. And he said Jupiter is the outreach, which is, you know, where we can either lack, you know, or it's expansion and growth as well, but it is expansion and growth. And Saturn is basically the price we must pay to get what we want. So it's like, if we spent a year studying astrology, like for 8 hours a day, would be amazing, as an example. If we spent, there's a price to pay for everything, you know, even in relationship. And he talks about relationship as being import and export, particularly when we're babies. We're really cute, or many of us were, and probably if we think of babies, babies are beautiful, but you know, a baby is giving something, it's bringing its life, and a baby gives something, so the baby is giving joy. And there's an import very early on, you know, this import export thing. And he explains in this book that when we're born, the egg and the sperm, so we're then taking up space, and it's like then we have to decide how much space are we going to take up. And some of us through trauma sort of cut ourselves off, and we, because of the trauma responses, fight, flight, freeze, we're either hypervigilant, or either fawning, being nice to people unnecessarily so, and not living out our truth, or we may disassociate. So trauma is very tied into understand, or not, it's not tied in, but we can see trauma in the astrology chart. So it's a great tool to begin to look at, what do I need to heal? If we look at the Chiron here as an example, it's 13 degrees of Aries. And at this point, what we're trying to do is to heal ourselves first. And that idea that you're on a plane and they say, you know, if it goes into an emergency moment, you put your own mask on first. So humanity is trying to do that at the moment. I've stopped watching all news at the moment because I realized that it affects me really badly. Also, I just don't know what to believe anymore of what's going on. The best way to believe things is direct, speaking to people directly in areas and parts of the world, you know, what's going on. If you speak to people, people tell you locally what's going on. Locally, we can be, is our reality to what's going on in the world. And when it's run by mainstream media, it's very difficult to know, is this true or is it not true? So interesting times we live in, and I'm sure the internet's going to change quite substantially in rules and regulations as well as we go through this period. Uranian energy also covers electricity, long-term memory and trauma, and it's also our electrical system as well. And we are in part electrical, we have our own electrical system going on. So the other thing I read in this book, he was explaining, he says, when we're looking at our lives, isn't this space worth occupying? So when we're in relationship to somebody or something, it could be a job, you know, is this the space I want to occupy? Because it is all about space, you know. When we look around us, we've got Saturnian things, like we've got tables and chairs, and we've got our bones and all of the solid stuff. And then we have to work towards something to make something solid in order to reap the benefits from it, whether that's studying or deciding to run a marathon or to be really good at something. You know, we have our natural talents, but then there are other things that we have to work at to achieve. And when we work at them, then we're rewarded through our input. He also points out, he says, is it safe to occupy this space, or is there opposition? So, you know, when we think, even if we move into a new area in our lives, you know, is there opposition out there? Am I safe here? And can I defend my own space? Can I defend it? And what is the purpose of the space I occupy? So when we're in life, we're occupying space, and we're here to really integrate and be ourselves and to be individuated, to think about all of the things that we've interjected as kids, like all of the things we've been told about religion, belief systems, foods we eat, everything that's been put into us, we believe it to be true. And at some point we sort of question things, like, you know, the first 2 years of our lives, we accept things as they are, but then we realize when we get to about 2, we realize that there isn't just, you know, the parent, that we begin to see that objects are outside ourselves, and that we, you know, they're not attached to us. We realize there's a separate sense of self. And if we've had healthy parenting, good enough parenting, then we don't understand, but in our consciousness, which will be held within us, we know that we're safe to individuate and go about our things that we like to do, you know, our own creativity and such like. if we're either over-adulated or we suffer abuse, it really damages our individuation, which can happen later in life, but it may take us working on ourselves and becoming very aware of where the trauma is. We've all got wounds, and you know, you'll be able to see this if you look in your chart at Chiron and look at where that's in your chart, and then you'd see the aspects to it. So you'd be looking at where I've actually got some nice aspects to Chiron, apart from that it is in the 4th house and it is conjunct Saturn, but the aspects to that are quite beautiful. So as I've gone through life and I look at the transits that hit that Chiron, it's helped me to take my trauma and be mature, and also given me the ability to help other people understand their trauma, because I collect data and knowledge, and then as I understand it and integrate it myself, I'm able to also be, I'm not saying I'm a role model, but we are role models to each other, all of us at some point, you know, different people as we move through life. So a couple of more things from there in a moment. What I want to look at is when I'm going to move this chart forward by days. I want to see when Mercury is going to be moving. Let's have a look here. Mercury is currently, we've got, this is beautiful. Look at this, Neptune, Venus, and Jupiter. It's very beautiful in Pisces. Neptune is at home in Pisces. Venus is very poetic in Pisces, and Jupiter is also beautiful in Pisces. Mars is difficult in Pisces. I mean, when we look at Mars in Pisces, it's where there is a strong drive, but the strong subconscious emotions also, it's not, but they're highly intuitive, but there can be a feeling of resorting to victim-like behavior when faced with threatening situations or people with that there. So that would mean that if we, you know, that if we feel like a victim, that we feel threatened, we may go inward. So that can be an issue. If you've got Mars in Pisces, I'd really be interested if you put a message below and see how that plays out for you, because we don't want to make it too standard, because, you know, this is just standard astrology talk of what something means. But when we've got it in our chart and then we've got aspects to it, your Mars could be conjunct something, or it could be, you know, in opposition or a trine. So it changes it. It's not going to be the same for everybody. But overall, if we just said that we looked at Mars in Pisces, what that meant, if we looked at what Neptune in Pisces meant, Venus in Pisces is, see here, Venus in Pisces is where we want to merge and become one. And it's like we want to be at one with the universe, or energy and energies, or whatever it is. And it's also where we like sharing inspirational activities, and also we like listening to beautiful music, and we like art. So Venus is quite beautiful there. Venus in Aries is where my Venus is 18 degrees of Aries. So I tend to, with my needs and my inner needs, I want to, you know, I like to take care of myself, my inner needs. And I also pursue things, because the ruler of my Venus is Mars, because it's so my Venus is in Aries, 18 degrees, and the ruler of my Venus is Mars, and Mars is in my 6th house, which is work and routines, and it's conjunct my Mercury. So you can see when we begin to do that, it really is much deeper than just it looks to be. It's much deeper when we look at a chart. So let's get rid of that, and I'm going to look at Mercury. There you go. So you see Mercury there. We're going to go forward, and then you're going to see when it hits 4 degrees there, Mercury in Gemini, then it's going to go station, and then it's going to go retrograde, and that's the 10th, 11th of May, depending on where you are. Yeah, it's going to be the 11th of May, and that will last for 3 weeks, and then it will go direct again. So it's going to go back to 26 degrees. It's going to be hitting my North Node. So you can see where that falls for you and what house it's in. So for me, that's going to be in my 7th house, my Gemini, but then it's going to go back into my 6th house. So I'm going over something. I'm going over my relationship status, and I'm also going over and how I communicate, and I'm also going over my work and the work I do and my creativity and whatever else is going on there with my routines and my health, going back over something. So retrograde is not to be, we don't need to be afraid of retrogrades, because it's where we review, rewind, release, relax. Maybe not in that order, but rewind, review, release, relax and release, maybe that way. So let's do this. This is quite lovely. So he says in this book, he says the moon is the decision-making process conditioned by past experience, events and habits. And then Venus is the pleasure and enjoyment, which is also our values and needs. And it's also the space that we occupy to appreciate what we already have. And that's gratitude, hey? And then Mars is our struggle to hold on to what we desire. So when we desire something, like whether it's a relationship or it's a job or it's a goal, it's a desire, it's an impulse, it's a desire, but it can be impulsiveness as well. And then Mercury is our awareness, the struggle, and it's planning, you know, our local stuff, and then the space, and then planning how we're going to say things, emails, communication, local stuff. Then we have the moon. It's also, he said, I'm bringing that in again, he says bargain, and it's the testing space, because we're bargaining, yeah? So with the moon, we're bargaining, it's egocentric, so there's a part of bargaining going on there as well. And Uranus is where we voluntary requinish, meaning we let go. We sort of voluntarily give up something. And it's where we can take 1 step back and 2 steps forward and so forth as well, trying to figure something out. And it can be shocking too, Uranus, it can be like, I'm done with that. Neptune is the dream we have for ourselves and our ideals and our achievements. And Pluto eliminates, I love this one, what he said Pluto eliminates all junk in our space and it also prevents complete enjoyment and development, so that we have free will to some degree. And also when we have an eclipse, wherever it's falling in our chart, we want to see what else it's doing for us. It's not going to be, for me, this eclipse is doing some beautiful stuff on my chart. So solar eclipse. He also explains about that everything is trade and exchange based on the needs of each other, and natural resources also, you know, there's risks in these things. See what's going on at the moment with the natural resources. And this is the Uranus and Taurus. It's farmland. It's to do with resources of the earth. You know, when we consider, you know, in solar panels, they use silver. We've got the resources of the earth, gold. We don't know how much gold exists. We don't know how much, you know, people find gold. They mine gold. We don't know how much gold, you know, when will we get to the end of the gold, like when we get to the end of oil and stuff like that. There's only so many resources in the earth already. And as we use them for things like batteries, you know, so the resources, different things, we use them for batteries, we use them for copper even, you know, for electrical wires, gold, silver. It's also, I was reading, is used in mirrors as well, to get, you know, that there is silver used in mirrors, not the frames, but to make the reflection reflective. So there's many resources on earth that, you know, that we need. And often what happens is that different countries have different resources. If we go back hundreds and hundreds of years, I can't remember the year, but salt used to be used as a currency. So instead of money, it was salt. And then we had gold coins. I'm jumping ahead here, but then we had gold coins, and then we had the paper money, and then we've now got Bitcoin. So we can see that this is changing, and we can see that governments maybe are looking at, you know, that it looks like they don't like Bitcoin because it's decentralized, and they would probably, I would imagine the plan would be that they can centralize it themselves and make money out of it. And then when we put our money in the bank, you know, how safe is it? We can see what happened in Canada a few months ago, and when the truckers were, when they were at the rally, or not the rally, but you know, when they were trying to, you know, get their needs met for the, they wanted their human rights and their needs met, and then bank accounts were frozen. So we can see that, you know, we're trusting people. So we can look at government and people who are in power as being in power, but they're people, you know, we're all people. And it's like we have this agreement. And if I go back to what Robert Dansky was saying, he's saying that we achieve completeness through each other. So this is, you know, again, Taurus, our needs. So what we would now do is look at where this is going for the next 6 months of our lives. And then we'd look at where the solar eclipse is happening, but we'd also be looking backwards as well. What was happening when we look back on our chart of the Saros cycles, because the Saros cycles, before I leave here, I'll show you again, the Saros cycles are different for each. In fact, I don't think I need to go back to that screen. Let's see this. If I find it, I'll tell you. Okay. All right. So the Saros cycle for this eclipse, solar eclipse, is Saros series 119. And then the one in May is Saros series 131. And then October is 124. And then November is 136. And they will all go back to particular years. So each eclipse is telling a story for us and an ongoing story. I want to look at when that Mars actually is out of Pisces. So I'm going to make sure I'm sharing the right chart actually. Yeah. So Mars, 29 degrees. So Mars is at home in Aries on May the 25th. And Jupiter will be in Aries as well. And Venus will then be moving out of Aries. So Venus is about 224 days around the chart. And then you can see that North Node is moving into Uranus. But the North Node takes 18 years around the chart, so you can see it moves slowly. With Uranus, it's 84 years around the chart. So when we're 84 years old, we have what's called our Uranus return. I'm just seeing what else is going on there. We've got that Pluto, which will be retrograde until October, CRX up there. And then the other thing we'll have is that Saturn, I'm going to go backwards, Saturn stations on the 4th of June. 3rd of June, Saturn stations on the 4th of June, and it will go backwards and then it will go forward again. I think it goes back. In fact, let's see what degree it goes back to, because it's in Aquarius. Saturn in Aquarius is an ability to work well in groups and also to be original and innovative. So that could be interesting to do with money as well at the moment. You know, how innovative can we be to do with our resources as well? Because in a way we're going to have to be, you know, particularly if there are shortages, depending on how badly that plays out. Because when we crops, you know, when we're planting, and it's quite incredible to me when I consider myself, I don't understand how, you know, weather permitting, clearly, with resources, particularly with food, because we can't predict, you know, we know when things may happen, but we can't predict storms. When I say we can't predict, I mean, ultimately we can, maybe the weather people may know when something's coming and they can advise us, but humanity can't really, you know, really predict, like, you know, volcanic eruptions and things like that. People may have an idea. It's the same with an astrology chart. We have free will. So the predictions very much would be that, you know, the possibilities, but then the possibilities of what I may do with the current knowledge status I've got and what I've been through, what I've looked at in my history. And then also when we interact with other people, we have dynamics going on that could be unexpected. There are so many variables in life. So the main point of this would be to help ourselves evolve on a soul level so that we can get the best out of this time space on earth that we have. That's my view. And if we can resolve things, you know, and really be who we've come to be, which is the individuated aspect, which Jung talks about heavily. I'm reading a book at the moment. I would say Individuation by Murray Stein. I'll put the link. It's a brilliant book. I think it's about 10 hours. I'll double check on my Audible. It is a brilliant book. You can go to Audible. If you don't like Audible, you can also go to your, you know, you can just get it from one of the book companies. So the title details are, it's the book is called Individuation, and it's by Murray Stein, S-T-E-I-N, and it is 10 hours and 14 minutes. And it's well read. The guy, whoever's reading it, it's called James Conlon, is narrated by, and it's a really good book. So I highly recommend that. Brilliant to listen to really understand what individuation is, because a lot of people can think individuation is becoming independent. It's more than that. Yeah, it's not what it seems. It's not just being independent and away from people. It's about becoming whole and integrated. Anyway, I think that's it. I hope I've covered everything today. I think I have. I wasn't expecting to spend this long on this this chart. So look where it is in your chart. It's happening for me in my 6th house, and if you need help, then let me know. Catch you later. Thanks for watching.